So welcome. It's 9/11, so we need to get started. Welcome to the breakout session called Adding Coding to Your Classroom with Google Docs, Slides, and more. Our presenter today is Patrick Shipway from Medford Secondary School, where he's a science teacher currently doing tech integration work. My name is Caroline Hooper. I am a volunteer, and I teach at Southwest High School in Minneapolis. I will be your host for this session today. If you have questions for Patrick or comments, please add them to the chat box. I will be monitoring the chat box throughout the session. When asking a question, please include your name and your organization or school. And as a reminder, the session is being recorded and will be available to play, pause, and rewind at your own speed later today. So let's get started. Patrick, it's yours.
Okay. I'm going to give people just another minute or so to fill out that survey at that tiny.cc/info99 link, so I can try and go at a pace that fits people's speed. From what I see, I've got 3 of you so far. Just take a minute to fill it out. That'll make this go smoother for everyone if we could do that. Thank you.
So I don't know if this is going to work for me.
You're still only seeing the best prep.
I can't utilize, I can see your face right now, but it's a tiny box up in the right-hand corner. How do I make it bigger? That just sounds like the most elementary question. Yeah.
I found it at the very top instead of on the bottom. It's on the very top on your right. It's tiny.
Yep. Now I just made it even smaller.
Patrick, maybe you want to reshare?
Yeah, I can turn it off and turn it back on, see if that fixes it.
Yeah.
Did that change anything for you?
Yes. Thank you.
Yep, you're most welcome.
I don't know what happened, but it's working.
I'm glad it's working now. We will troubleshoot as needed. Okay, so we got most people in. Take a few more seconds and I'll get going. Okay, from the responses coming in so far, it looks like we got a wide range of elementary through high school people and people relatively new to coding, but feel fairly comfortable with technology. So knowing that, I'll try and go at a relatively slow pace, try and explain what I'm doing. I'll try and tie this into as many age ranges or subject ranges as I can. Okay, so I'm trying to add code to our classroom. And as many ways as possible, actually using as little code as possible, but tying those concepts in. And you can then add coding pieces to it if you want with these features and these programs. So we're going to start out, we're going to build an app using no code whatsoever. To speed things up, I've pre-built part of this. So I opened and we're going to make this app in Google Slides. So the first thing we have to do is make a home screen for our app. So usually it's got some kind of picture on it. So that's my school's logo. I took a picture of it. I put it on that first slide. I then put the text staff help app down there. But my staff was having trouble finding links to useful resources. When this goes into presentation mode, it looks like an actual app later. When they click on this, it'll bring them to slide 2. On slide 2, I added buttons, or these shapes that will turn into buttons to these useful things they'll need. So for the example of this, I made 6 different buttons, but I put them on 2 different slides. So school calendar, custodial request form, our TDE, teacher development resources, and then I put the other 3 on slide 3. You can easily have them all on one slide. You could put more on one slide, just make them smaller. It does not matter what size they are, what shape they are. I'm just showing you there's more than one way to do it. On each slide, you want to have buttons that let you go home or they get stuck where they're at. Okay, now let me show you how these actually will work like an app. So for each of these buttons I built on slide 2 and 3, they're shapes with words in there. So built a shape.
Excuse me, what do you mean by buttons? Make buttons.
So when this is an app, they'll click it like you would on an app. You click it and it goes somewhere. I'm gonna show you how we did that in just a second, if that makes sense. It should, give me a second, I think it'll make sense. If it doesn't, ask again and I'll show you. So right now it's a shape and I typed in school calendar. To make it go somewhere, I have to build a new slide for it. So slide 4 is my school's calendar. To make it jump there, I click on that shape and I insert a link, which is this little link button, or Control K for insert link will make it be a button. Maybe it's easier if I show you what it looks like right now. Let's do this quick. So this is how I preview my app. So note it's vertical and doesn't take up a lot of space on my screen because it's built for like phones, which have a more vertical layout. But if my mouse pointer is my finger and I click the home screen, it would jump to the next part of this. Now these shapes are all going to be buttons that would go somewhere. I haven't added a button for school calendar yet. It's just the shape. But see how it goes from a pointer to a finger for custodial request form or TD resources. Those would all go somewhere. So like when I click on one of these buttons, it jumps to where that button's supposed to go and takes them to that resource page.
So
When I click on the home button, it goes back to that home slide or that home page of the app. This looks better on a phone, but it's hard to show a phone virtually, so I can't really do that. Is there a question?
yeah, I was just wondering, in order for you to click, say for example, school calendar, you must have probably uploaded it somewhere, right?
Kind of.
Oh,
so
okay.
Let me show you how, there's 2 ways to do that we'll get to, but I want to show you how I make these jump places first, then I'll show you how it's uploaded,
Okay.
as you put it.
Or whatever.
Right, and the right idea,
the
not quite the same terms I'd use, but sure. Okay, so we just clicked on the technology integration and resources. That one I already linked and made a button. But this school calendar one does not have a button going to it right now.
Oh, okay.
So some of my buttons go to websites, like this website I just took us to before. This school calendar one, I could go to a website, but sometimes you want it to just all stay in the Google slide, so it all stays inside the app we're making. So that's why I made slide 4 be my school calendar. So we're gonna have that button, number 2, it's not a button yet, but will be soon, jump to slide 4. So I do that by clicking on the shape, then either clicking the link button or hitting Control K for link. When I do that, it asks me to put in a link. That's where I could go to that website, or it gives me this option for slides in this presentation. I know, especially if I labeled it well, that my slide 4 is my calendar. When I click on that and hit apply, now that becomes a button that'll jump to my 4th slide and be the calendar one. So now if I go and preview this again, go back into like my app preview mode. When I click on school calendar, it's now a button that jumps to the calendar. And my home button works, so it goes there. So now all 3 of these are buttons I don't have a home button here, so I'm gonna go back and add that home button, similar to how we just added the other one. Add a little more space, there we go. Okay. So if we go back here, I have a next page button, it's not linked. So right now, if I type in here, it's going to be much smaller, not very lovely letters. I want to steal the same format. So I'm going to steal this text from my next page button and paste it in there, and then just type home in there instead. Now click on that home button and again do my link button or Control K and choose my very first slide. There are two ways you could do this. You could choose the previous slide because we're on slide 2 and slide 1 is the first one. I don't recommend doing previous and next. If you end up adding a new slide, it'll go to the one before this, which may not be the first slide. I always say pick the first one, pick a numbered slide, ideally, because it'll always be the first or the third. If you add, if it's the third slide and you add a slide above it, it becomes slide 4 and all autocorrects. The next slide will be one you stick in there and will screw up your app along the way. So pick the first or pick a number. Don't pick previous or next. It'll cause you problems down the road. So now the bottom one's always a little hard to read, but it says first slide. That button's created. I do the same thing with next page. Insert my link. If I wanted to go to the bottom here, and I can't really scroll all the way down, you can use arrow keys and go all the way down. We don't need to, but I could. So for the next one, I want slide 3. I need to move you guys. Apply. Now this page is done. I did a lot of what's on slide 3, I think. That one's should be done. Yep, that one's linked. That one's linked. That one is not linked. So I'm going to link this one to my last slide. Control K again for link. Go to, oh, this one I got to scroll down because I can't reach it. So use the arrow keys. So this one I know is slide 9, but I didn't label it well. These all tell me what slide it is because I put a title in the slide. Slide 9 is the slide I want for my SAMR stuff, but I didn't actually label it, so it doesn't know what it's called. That was a poor choice on my part. So I was smart, I go back in there and put in a title for it, and it would know what I'm looking for. It'll still go there, it's fine, but I didn't label it very well.
Can I ask a quick question? How did you go
Yeah.
and label each slide?
How do you, so.
How did you do that?
Yep, so in slide 8, let me do this, okay. I'm gonna go and right click on a slide.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a layout,
Okay.
if they have a title spot in there, so title section, title and body, any of these that say title on them,
Yep.
if in that title part, so like this is one of those, this
Okay.
text box is a title piece.
Gotcha.
Whatever I put in there, it'll call it.
Perfect. Thank
Like,
you.
Yep, slide 9 didn't have one of those, and I didn't put it in there. I could cheat and pick one of those slides, but if I didn't want it shown, I could put it there and make the text clear, and it would still label it that way and wouldn't have to be seen. I could kind of hide it there and trick the slide into still calling it slide 9 SAMR, if that makes sense, Lucinda?
Yep, it does. Thank you so much.
Yep, you're most welcome. Thanks for asking. That was a good question. I did not think to put in there. Where was I? Oh, here, okay. So then I think they're all linked here. Yep. Okay, I'm just gonna add the last 2 things here. So this slide has got it set up, but these are supposed to go places that don't currently. I conveniently put where they're supposed to go in links down here ahead of time. So I'm gonna link them. There's more than one resource that teachers could access when they're on this page. So I'm gonna link them there and then change my font to that red color. I don't know if I actually have it here. Oh, I don't, there's another trick. So if I want this color to match this color that's exact maroon from my school, I can go and click on this paintbrush tool after I select the shape. It'll copy what I had. If I then put it on top of this, it then matches that color exactly from something else. So I do the same thing, hit the little paint format tool, and drag it over whatever else I want it on. It goes red for that one also. I could have dragged over both the shapes. It would have done both of them at the same time. I just wanted to show it twice, so I've got that option. Put that link in there. But now when I put the link in, I got the problem because it made it blue again. So I'll go back and do the same formatting thing I just did. If I can get that link to go in just a second. Okay, so paint format, drag over both of these. They both go red again. There's still links, there's still buttons. Everything in my app is now linked. So I'm gonna go back to that preview mode to make it look like we're gonna test out the app by just changing. So right now I'm in editing mode, just as my normal Google Slides way. So this is one of the two ways you can get this to go live to someone as an app. If you change your share settings so that anyone who has the link can view it, usually this says something like people who have the link, it's usually restricted, something like that. If you change it to anyone with the link can view, once you do that, you can then change this link up here. Everything from edit on, you delete and change to preview. It goes like you're in a presentation mode and acts like an app on a computer screen like we're looking at it, or more conveniently on a cell phone or a tablet or any electronic device. And we then can go click through it. That's one of the two ways we can make it app-like. So I'll click on it. Now all these buttons will work. We go to school calendar, we go home, go to the next page, we can go back. However, if I go to the next page here, and let's say I click on the side where it's not on a button, it's one of these gray parts, I still go to the calendar. That's not what we want to have happen, right? In an app, you have to click a button for something to happen. I should have to click one of these 5 yellow buttons to make it work. So I go back up here, nothing happens. I fixed that problem. But on this page, it just goes to the calendar. The calendar goes, let's just go other places. So we need to fix that problem somehow. So I'm gonna get us out of this preview mode by typing in edit again. Since I have editing rights, it'll take me back to the original form. So this is kind of a slightly upper level cheat for it to make it run smoother. I'm going to add another box on top of my entire slide. So I go insert, if you didn't see that, sorry. Insert, shape, choose a rectangle. I drag over the entire shape here. That did not work, what the heck? Insert shape. There we go. So this shape, I want, if they click on it, to just come right back to the same slide I'm on. So I know right now we can't see anything. I'm going to fix that in a second. So I add another link. link it right back to slide 3 and apply that. Now we're going to make the link or the shape be transparent. Now we can see it. Make the border color be transparent, which makes it look the same again. But right now this shape is in front of all my other buttons. So the buttons don't work because they're hidden behind this transparent shape. So I need to go up to Arrange, Order, Arrange, Order. I need to send it to the back. So it's at the very back of all the other buttons and only gets clicked if they click in the gray space and not the yellow space. So now when I do that, here I get that button clicked. I only get that big box if I click in the gray space that's behind all the yellow buttons. So now my app is done. I could send it out with the preview mode, or the other way I can do it is by going up to File and Publish to the Web. If I click on that, it'll be live and sitting on the web for anyone to find with that link. I already published this one. So if I stop publishing it, I'll show you how this would look. When you click on Publish to the Web, you get this. I don't like it auto-advancing every 3 seconds, or the app will just go through the slides, which is not what we want. So I make it every minute. If anyone's sitting on a slide for more than a minute, I don't know what they're doing with it, but you also can make that longer if you want. We can cheat and do that too. And I just hit Publish, agree to it, say okay. And then this is the link you'd send out to your kids, to your coworkers, to whoever's going to be viewing it. Put it on a website. If you're afraid a minute is not long enough, you can make this number at the back longer. It's in milliseconds. So 60,000 milliseconds is a minute. You think you need longer, just make it, well, you can't do it until you copy it. You can make that 200,000 instead of 60, or over, 2 1/3 minutes. Change that to whatever time you want, and it'll last that way. There's a way, once it gets on people's phones, of how to make it so they can put it onto their home screen and make it look like an actual app, like a button on there. I'm not going to go through those because they're different for iPhone and for Android, but it's in the resource I'm going to give you at the end of how to do that. In the step, they walk you through it. It's not that hard, but it takes a little while for both. I want to make sure we get through both pieces. So I'm going to leave that off for now. Questions before I go on to the next piece?
Yep, I have one quick question.
Yep.
So are you able to shorten the link that you're going to give, like either students or parents? Or do you is it the whole string of letters and numbers?
You can hide the link. So like, let's do it this way. Let's just do a new slide here. Did I copy that one? I don't know. Okay, so this is the one, I'm copying that link for the published one. Text is going to be white so I can see it. Right, so that's the link, right, which is long. It's a problem, right? If I say, here is the link to the app. If I highlight link to the app, come on. That's too far. If I highlight link to the app and then do what I did similar to linking the boxes to different slides, I do the Control K or Command K if you're on a Mac and paste in that link, just those words, whatever I put underneath it, when they click on that, it is that long link. They won't see it. It's just the words you type and hide the link behind it. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
So I almost never put big messy links in there because they're messy and ugly. So I always put something like that in there. Say my app or whatever you want to call it.
Please,
How to save the world.
Yeah, could you repeat it? I missed some steps, if you don't mind.
For how to hide the link.
Okay, you highlight the link.
Yep, so you have the link somewhere. You type the words you want.
Okay.
So type my app. You highlight those words that you want, click on the link button, or type Control K or Command K if you're on a Mac. Paste in the link that you had for the file published to the web. Then you hit apply. It'll change color. Mine's a funny blue because I'm on a funny background. Like we found before, you could change that color to whatever you want. And now when they click on it, those couple words will take them to this long address, and it'll open up in that app mode that'll look much better on a phone than a laptop, but I can't present easily through a phone to do this. Does that make sense? Okay. Oh, I did forget one thing to tell you guys. So usually Google Slides in a landscape view, but we're clearly in a vertical view. To change that, you go File, scroll almost to the bottom, Page Setup, and then choose Custom, and then change a vertical option. 8x12 is a pretty decent guess. If you know you're going all for iPhones, you can tailor it to what fits for them. Some people do it in pixels, but you want something vertical-ish. A little skinnier than paper is what most phones are, so I usually do about 8x12. If it ends up, you can test it on a few phones, it's a little too long, a little too skinny, you can change those numbers to make them work, but you want to make sure it's vertical in some way, or it won't work well on phones. They're usually held portrait.
So I do have one more question. So you would send this link. So if I'm understanding, would you send this link out then to like parents, and then it would show up in the app form?
So yeah, it will show up in this form. I would then give them directions, which are in the resources I'll give you, but they take a little longer to explain. They will take this link in their browser, and there's a directions on an iPhone how to add that to your home screen as an app. There's directions for if you have an Android phone, how to add that to your home screen. Takes 2 to 3 steps depending on which device you have.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It should be pretty straightforward. If it's not, my contact info is on there. Email me. I'll gladly walk you through it. I just want to make sure we get to the second part also.
Yep. Nope. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Then let's jump back here. Okay. So in doing that app, we technically use no coding, but we still looked at algorithms and sequencing and events. We had to lay out what things we want in there, where they're going to go, what they connect to, all those pieces they're going to have in there and happen. With conditionals, if they click on this button, it has to go to this slide and link to it. If they click outside of it, we found out that it's going to go to the wrong spot. You have to fix that. So conditionals are your standard if-then statements in coding. While it's never explicitly said in there, we still had to deal with them. The debugging is, we had very little of that because I've done this many times before. But the debugging we did see is when they clicked outside of the yellow boxes, it jumped to the next slide and would just keep going, like a slideshow, not like an app. That's why we had to add that transparent box on top of the slide to prevent them from just moving on to the next one. Debugging is finding the problems, fixing them along the way. It's a very common coding principle. All right, so we only had 3 in that one. Now let's try and code a story, or code by writing a story. So I'm going to jump, well, I wasn't going to make a brand new one. We're going to be tight on time. So I'm going to open up one I've done before instead. Okay, so this is called, so it's in a Google Doc, there's an add-on called Story Speaker. If you don't know what add-ons are, they're up in your file menu. Up to the right of file, there's add-ons. I've got a handful of them. You may not have any yet. You can go to Get Add-ons, and you can search for Story Speaker. When you do on your end, you should get this. Yours will not say installed probably because you haven't installed it yet. But if you click on install, you get it. Take a minute or so to download, then you'd be good to go. When you come back to Google Docs, you'd go to the add-on and open Story Speaker. it'll open a sidebar on the right. This lets you make, as it says, interactive talking stories without coding. So basically, you're just going to do text and formatting that lets you make talking Mad Libs, apps, programs. I'm going to play the one that I built the other day, and I'll walk you through how it works and how to set it up. But from this add-on, you can get a basic template or advanced template, which is a really great place to start. Along with, I'm going to give you a bunch of resources, other people's you can play with, tinker with, edit, change, whatever you want. I'm hoping my computer's volume will come through. Someone let me know if it does or does not once I start this. Oh, and see, so when I play it, it also gives me errors to debug the program. I'm clearly missing something in my program. So let's figure out what I'm missing. Ah, yep, that's not going to work. Well, we'll fix that later. Okay, will it run? Oh. Okay, did you guys hear that? No volume. Okay, that's less than fun. Can I change that? I don't know. Okay, so this is reading out loud to me. And normally you guys will be able to hear it, but I think because of the Zoom setup or settings, you can't. And then normally I can click on this volume microphone and allow it. And I could then say write and answer the question, and it would then put in write and that's spell adjective. Okay, we're just gonna fix this right here. I'll break down how it's supposed to work without you guys hearing it because it's not playing at the moment. Okay, so the basic template will give you a title and a by. You have to have a title for your story. It's going to read that out loud. You have to have an author of some sort in there. It does not have to be your name. If it's a kid's name, I never have them put their first and last name. It's usually just the first name and that's it, or a pen name, something like that. Between there and start here, you can have things like randoms or more complicated features, but I'm going to skip those at the moment. It'll then give you this extra text that we don't care about. It'll then say start here. It'll give you an intro. That's when the program starts reading your story. Whatever you put not in bold, it will read aloud. You're basically making a choose your own adventure story, so you have to make a question that comes in there. So the question here is, do you go to the left or the right? To make this work, after the question, you have to indent your answers. So since this one's here at 0, when you get down to the next line, you could do tab, but it sometimes causes problems. They give you directions when you have the story speaker extension open to do control. I'm guessing it's command on a Mac, and the little bracket below backspace and above enter that jumps you to the right. It automatically moves this one tab to the right. See how it jumps left and right? That makes it go much easier. Now all of my text will be one tab over for the next questions. Whatever I want the computer to listen for will be in bold. So if you say left, the computer's listening for the word left. If you say left, it'll then read this part aloud. If you say the word right in quotes, it'll read this part aloud. Usually people make it so one of the two endings actually has an end and the story is done. There's only one right answer to get through these. You can make them have multiple branches and go down through them, but that makes it a much more complicated story arc. I would not try that early on. I would wait till you've written one or two of these before you make them have multiple story arcs. So if your second question here, that needs to be tabbed over again. So from that one, I then hit my control brackets, it goes to the right again. I have my two answers here. But for every two answers you have, it is highly recommended that you also put an otherwise. So if you see this indent is at 1/2 inch, I also have an otherwise at 1/2 inch that's way down below. Usually I build that first and then add the other pieces in there. Because if you ask the question left or right and your kid says, I don't care, it doesn't know what to do with that unless you give an otherwise response. This is really good at making kids think about all the possible answers that someone could possibly give to a question, not just the ones they expect and they want you to put in there or they choose to put in there. So therefore, it's usually something like you have to do one of the two options. Pick one. This one just says the pig monster's not going to wait, but your choice. So I have an otherwise for every indented set. But if you notice, as we keep going and keep indenting for questions, at some point, this indenting is going to be a problem. If I end up indenting over here and want to write a paragraph, it's going to be like 2 pages long, and I run out of space. Therefore, there's a special feature that we can get out of that that will add to it. So I'm going to jump to, let's just do it here. So you can add in a thing called go to. I type go to the town, bracket, bracket, oops, bracket, bracket. Now, if I'm saying go to, I can start all over, all the way to the left, and I get all my lines back. All I have to do is put the town, and it'll start reading in normal text. And I don't have to worry about my spacing and indents. And I give a new question here. I can start my indents over all over again. I tend to make most of my stories after each question have a go-to. One of them ends, one of them has a go-to that jumps left, so I don't have them indent over and over and over again. It's a little tricky for kids to get, but it makes it much smoother, much cleaner, and it makes it so that the spacing looks nicer. I'm going to jump, oh, I got to pull this back out, to one I wrote for my wife. There we go.
It's a 5-minute warning, Patrick.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, so this one's, I don't know, 4 pages long, which is not a recommended length I'd do for your first one, but it shows all the features you can have in there. Okay, so intro, one option, otherwise. The one ends, oops, come on. The one ends, the other one, if you answer it, it goes to the next thing. This one creates a loop. So otherwise, oopsies, there we go. If you don't get it right, it's saying, oh, come on, and gives you a hint to go back to the same question to keep answering it. Because there's only one right answer. You have to go back to right man until you get it correct. The right answer then brings you to the next step. So it's always one indent left, one indent left, one indent left. I only wanted one possible route for them to go. There are no ends in my story for this one. It goes all the way down. But I do have randoms. So to make the story a little more interesting, kind of like Mad Libs, you can make if you put in bold the word randoms between your title and by and the start here, whatever you put before the colon becomes a random term. Later in your story, you can put them between pound signs or hashtags, and it'll then read one of those words randomly when the story is read aloud the next time. So I've had kids make these for explaining chemistry content. I've seen kids do this for how they're going to fix global warming. I've had kids do these for explaining coding principles, which was pretty spot on. The variedness of how well they did it has gone up and down. Teach them to debug and check it often. And note they should definitely listen to it, because this originally said technically she was just tearing up, but Google read that as just tearing up. So sometimes we have to purposely misspell words to make it verbally sound correct. Okay, you're not going to get to the last section. But so for you doing those, lots of conditionals. If they say this, this is the response. If they say something else, this is the response. If they say neither of those, that's where your otherwise comes in to be a response. You have to have a fallback that if the computer doesn't catch what you're saying, in any of them, it'll give a response to make them try again. Events. All the go to this thing is an event. You're going to whatever you call it, the town, go to the person, whatever you want to claim that as, that's an event that's happening there. Loops. That last story had loop after loop after loop. If you didn't get the question right, you had to answer it again until you got it right. Which would be really hard for people who don't know me and my wife, but it worked out pretty well for her. Variables. Those are those randoms. It's going to pick one of these random variables to stick in for adjective every time it reads it. You can talk about math percentages. If you want to put in 3 good terms and 6 bad terms, what's the percentage of chance it's going to pull a good one? Let's see if it actually happens. If we run this story, make a really short one, run it 5 times, how close are we to that? Algorithm and sequencing. This one's huge for this. You have to make sure that the pieces go in order, are tabbed out right, or that the pattern, the system won't go correctly if you don't have it sequenced out in the right way. And the debugging, it's pretty good at telling you when something's wrong, like the first one showed, I had a mistake, as long as you read it, as long as you check often. Kids make mistakes and make a 3-page long one, and then check at the end, they'll have like 28 issues that they need to fix. It won't be much fun. I was going to talk about Scratch, another option. We will not have time for that, but all those options and things are in the resources that I'm going to give you here on this Google Doc. So I showed you there's a infographic of how to make the Google Slides app. There are tons of resources for making these types of story speaker apps and programs. There's lots of Scratch resources for lots of people, different subject areas. Take a look, it's yours. My contact info's on there. Yeah, it's a decent sized document. Questions in the last minute or so? Sorry, I rushed that.
I did have a question. With this story speaker, what is the youngest age you've had success with?
We've done it with 6th graders with the simple piece. So we've not done it like, so with scaffolding, they've not done random variables, and they've just done like a 1-page one in the tabs. They've done that. We help them along. I don't know. You probably could work them up to that, and you probably could do, the goal was to do a 3rd grade class with help in just small pieces of it, giving them a template just to tweak parts of it this spring or last spring, but then COVID hit. So I think it could be done to middle elementary if it's set up right. I can't guarantee that because I was going to try and didn't.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any final questions from anyone? Okay. All right, well,
Thanks
for
all.
coming.
Hopefully you found something useful and
Thanks.
have fun at the rest of TIW.